Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we actually have something really damn exciting to talk about. The most recent build of the PTR was released, and by the way, it did have some new quest content for most of the first zone of Argus, and all that stuff was pretty great overall, but more importantly, and oddly, some armor was data mined, and that would not normally be really of note. However, this is rather special armor. First of all, its icons are named Culturas quest armor. Now, this is a naming convention that Blizzard has previously used for expansion leveling gear in terms of the actual file names involved. Now, that's the first strange thing. Why would gear intended, presumably for expansion leveling, be added in patch 7.3? Now, from being on the PTR, I can say that no Culturas stuff has happened yet on Argus, and I don't expect it to. But here's where it gets really interesting. The actual piece of armor contains a map that is sewed into the sides of the robe. Now, the thing is, it's a map of somewhere we've never been to, because presumably it's Culturas. On the map, you can make out enough room for there to be multiple zones, but more interestingly, if you take a look at what is below the map, well, you'll see lots of tentacles. And in Warcraft, tentacles mean old gods, and old gods mean void lords, a narrative angle that Blizzard has been pushing more recently, and they've continued to push that rather heavily in patch 7.3. So today we're going to cover the relevant speculative topics and do a quick lore primer of Culturas so that you know what's up here, and the narrative hooks that Blizzard could use to tie all of this into the present day. Now, of course, this could be a red herring, but I think it would be strange for a red herring to have, like, high-quality art and stuff like that in it, but, you know, it could be something other than what we're covering today. However, this just happens to seem likely. Now, who is from Culturas? Well, lots of people, but more importantly, Jaina Proudmoore, and we have seen nothing of her since the start of Legion. She rage quit on the Alliance, and then she teleported away. Where the hell has she been in the interim? Now, this is very spicy because one of the things that we've been speculating for a very long time indeed, is an old god expansion. We've had expansions where the old gods have appeared, or they have puppeted things behind the scenes, but we haven't really had one where it's overtly front and center the main villain is an old god. If there was to be an old god expansion, it would feature N'Zoth, of course. He is the last undefeated old god on Azeroth, and I doubt they'd bring back, like, Cthulhu or Yogg-Saron, just, you know, for this expansion. But anyway, N'Zoth is of the seas, and Culturas is, of course, a maritime nation, which gives us a clear link between the two. Additionally, the Naga were really covered a lot in Legion, with Ashara sending minions on multiple occasions to attempt to capture the Tidestone of Golganeth. They would have likely been doing that on N'Zoth's orders, as she currently serves him. Now, Il'gynoth sort of comes in. He did say 5 keys to open our way, 5 torches to light our path, which seems to be referring to the Pillars of Creation, which Ashara was going after. He also had some other quotes referring to things. One of them is, "Her heart is a crater, and we have filled it." Now, I'm assuming this was referencing the Azeroth Titan, but it could be used to explain a very angry old god serving Jaina because all that she loved was pretty much nuked, and the space left by that could have been filled with old god whispering. But the point here is that the Naga and Ashara pretty much marched to the beat of N'Zoth's drum. Now, I recently covered the history of Culturas in a video about the unexplored regions of Azeroth, and I'm going to roll that quick section of the video now for the sake of convenience, and then I'll be back after. Culturas is an entire human nation that we've never really seen in-game before, which is kind of insane. It's pretty much just been sitting there, not taking a part in anything since Warcraft 3. So, Culturas itself is an island located just west of the Central Eastern Kingdoms. It has been part of the game's lore since Warcraft 2, but it's also been really absent from World of Warcraft. You might think that it's therefore just something that Blizzard have wrote out of the story or forgotten about. Not true. In Legion, Culturas Marines are amongst the captives of the sea giants in Oceanus Cove, so they're definitely very much still in existence. Now, people thought that Cataclysm would add Culturas to the game, but the closest that we got was, of course, Tol Barad, which is close to Culturas and is an island that used to be under their control. Now, numerous developer interviews in and around that era mention them wanting to bring Culturas into the game for a patch, but of course we know that did not happen. Culturas itself appears to be an independent city-state that's located in the sea between the kingdoms of Lordaeron, well, now the Forsaken, and Stormwind. They seem to have been your sort of standard, like, maritime merchant state, perhaps similar maybe to like something, I don't know, like Venice. They joined up with the original alliance in the Second War when Lothar asked their leader, Dalen Proudmoore, for aid. So Culturas then went, helped them out, but eventually pulled out of the alliance after Lothar's death and the end of the Second War. But they were quickly pulled back into action when the orcs renewed their offensive. But later on in Warcraft 3, a Culturas base on the Darkspear Islands would be destroyed by Thrall's horde. Shortly after that, Medivh then convinced Jaina to lead her expedition across the sea to Kalimdor. In doing that, she pretty much took a very big proportion of the Culturas fleet. This, of course, led to the alliance between the humans, the Night Elves, and the Orcs, and a few others that eventually ended up killing Archimonde in Warcraft 3. So, Culturas then re-enters the story shortly after that during the Founding of Durotar campaign in Warcraft 3. Basically, Dalen came looking for his daughter with a fleet that was large enough to really involve quite a lot of the nation's strength. They began to attack the orcs in Durotar, much to the confusion of the orcs given their alliance with Jaina, but after a few twists and turns, Dalen took over Theramore and prepared for a massive assault on the newly constructed Orgrimmar. Jaina, of course, then turned on her father and convinced Thrall to hire mercenary goblin ships to blockade Theramore itself. Then, of course, Thrall attacked the city, which led to Dalen's death. Bar a few mentions, though, they have not been really seen in the game since. Jaina is presumably their leader, and given the lack of a story for her recently and her apparent rage quit at the start of Legion, it seems perhaps likely that she could narratively be used to bring Culturas back into the game. Okay, so as you can see, this is, I think, a bit of decently solid evidence pointing towards this being some sort of expansion, especially since the new icons, they're actually referencing what's normally questing gear. Now, this expansion seems to be a clear choice for a Legion follow-up in my view. It would be a departure, of course, from Black and Green. I'd love that. And it could take us away, to some new settings and cultures, things we have not seen before, which would be great. It could be used to more properly introduce the Void and flesh out the old gods. We've seen plenty of hints in Legion and 7.3, but I don't think it's time just now to hop into our spaceships and start blasting the Void Lords. Now, going Lovecraftian again would be quite nice, and I'm especially keen to see what sort of angle they approach it from. So I wonder, will we, if it was to happen, would we land in Culturas to find the locals indoctrinated? Would we be trying to foil a cultist plot? Perhaps there'd be some Onyxia-like political stuff going on. Now, additionally, it's also a nation of sailors, and there are many islands in and around there, such as there's Plunder Isle, there's Zandalar, there's the Dragon Isles, all those things. We haven't actually seen them before in-game. And you can check out my video about the unseen locations in Azeroth if you want more of that stuff. Now, there's also the rear of Azeroth, which was confirmed in Argus, so we weren't really sure, does the normal map just spread around the planet? No. From the perspective of being on Argus looking at Azeroth, you will notice that the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor are visible, which means that there is a back half to Azeroth. And Chronicle also does state that Kalimdor wasn't the only supercontinent on the planet way back in the day, so they could always do something with that. Maybe Neoloth is there, maybe Neoloth is some far-off planet, very hard to know, but there is lots of potential mystery, intrigue, and plot fodder there, and I think this thing, which bizarrely appeared on the PTR, completely not expected. I think it certainly sparks off a conversation there. I mean, even before seeing this, this is what a lot of people thought would be a likely place for Blizzard to go. But anyway, guys, let me know, is this something you would like to see as an expansion? Down in the comments. I'm pretty keen to hear whether people are hungry for more space now that we've been teased with Argus, or whether you'd like to just sort of pull it back and have a bit more of an Azeroth-focused story. But anyway, that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.